Well, Winter Wonderland showed up, although I'm not sure how wondrous it is. Honestly, we don't even, it doesn't even seem like we have a whole lot of snow. Most of it is in drifts because the wind is blowing. The wind is basically just a constant, like 30 mile an hour, gusting up to 50. Not pleasant. According to the Weather Channel, it's supposed to feel like negative 26, and I believe it. My initial intent today was to, I shouldn't say my initial intent, one of the things that I wanted to try to do was get the starter off the 1950T and get it over here and tear it apart and figure out why the Bendix keeps hanging up in it. But, the way the weather is right now, you can only really stand to work on something outside barehanded for about 2, maybe 3 minutes, and then your hands feel like they're freezing off. So getting the starter off the tractor is going to be a chore, because you can't do that with gloves on. You can't get anything. You got it. There ain't no way. And then, basically, if you're outside right now, it's fine if you're not doing a whole lot. But basically, the minute you start moving, you physically can't breathe fast enough. It's like the air is so thin right now because it's so cold. It knocks you flat on your ass. Well, this is today's project. Just dragging that thing up from the barn. I had to take a break by the time I got it up here because I was so out of breath. Because you can't breathe. It's so bad out right now. But that being said, this is today's project. I wasn't initially going to make a video on this, but I figured it's Friday, the weather's shit, I might as well make a video. And it's kind of farm related because what farm doesn't have a good old torpedo heater? And it's old. This is actually my granddad's heater. He bought it because he used to be a contractor, and he used to build houses and remodel houses, and this is what they used when they were working in the winter to heat the houses so that they weren't freezing their asses off. It's from the 70's, it's from the mid to late 70's, I know that much, which you can tell by the style and the color, which is partly why I think it's kind of cool. I like the color and just the way it's formed and everything. It's got that retro look to it, which, I don't know. I'm one of them weird people that likes things like that, but it's an old, is it a Champ or a Champion? Champ job maker heater. And it was sold out of the original stickers on it. It was sold out of General Equipment and Machine out of South Bend, Indiana, which they're not even in business anymore. But they were a contractor supply. And last time I remember this thing running, I was barely old enough. And the biggest reason I remember it was because that was one of the last houses Granddad built, and it was right after he was diagnosed with diabetes. And I remember I was over, I couldn't have been more than, well, it would have been, I think it was after I got out of Riley Hospital, so I would have been older than 5. So I couldn't have been, I had to have been like 6, 7 years old, I think. If that. It might have been before, it would have had to have been after Riley, because I would have been too young. But anyway, I would go over there and help, basically. At that age, you're more underfoot than anything else, but he was building a lake house over here, and I remember it, I guess to bring the diabetes thing into it, because at that point, he had to be aware of his blood sugar, and if it got too low, he always carried around, and I know a lot of diabetics that did this. He would carry around one of them rolls of Fruity Lifesavers, and he explained to me that if I was ever walking around and I found him laying on the floor, he told me pull this pack of Lifesavers out of his pocket and put one in his mouth so he could get his blood sugar back up. And that's always it's stupid, but that's always what I associate with this heater, because this heater was running in that house, and I remember him telling me that's what he needed if I ever found him unconscious like that, because if he would ever go into a diabetic coma. Luckily, it never came to that, and now his blood sugar's he's got it well under control and he doesn't have to do anything like that anymore. But I think now he's to the point he doesn't even, I'm not even 100% sure he's got to check it anymore. I think they got it where it needs to be. But anyway, so the last time this thing ran was easily 23, 24 years ago. Spoiler alert, it does still run. When I wasn't planning on making a video of it earlier this week, I brought it up here because when Granddad quit building houses, it just got put in the barn, and then he was cleaning the barn out and he gave it to us in case I would ever need it. And then it went up on our shelf. So earlier this week I brought it up here and got it plugged in, and the pump would turn on and it wouldn't fire. Well, come to find out, there was that mouse nest all up inside the fire pot. And luckily, it could have been bad. I should have tore it apart and checked it first, but at that point, I just wanted to plug it in and see if the pump and fan would turn on, so I'd know if it was worth screwing with. But luckily, the damn mouse that built the nest was laying across the igniter contacts and shorting them out so they weren't throwing a spark. Because the little bit that I'd ran it was enough to soak that mouse nest with diesel fuel. And if it would have lit off, that would have made a heck of a rocket. But got it cleaned out. It does work. I mean, it blows. It's nice and quiet. Well, the pump, fans, everything are nice and quiet. The thing sounds like a jet engine running because it's so big. So it does run, but basically just need to rewire it because the cord is all brittle and cracking. And we don't want this thing turning into a fire in the basement of the barn. So I bought a big wad of new 14.3 SO cord for it. And that's just what I'm going to do today, is rewire it. But like I say, I wasn't initially going to do this because it's not really this channel's thing. But you see a lot of tool rescue videos on the YouTube and they get a lot of views. Not that this one's going to get any views because this isn't the way my channel works. But something's better than nothing, I guess. So anyhow, we'll get this thing wired up, and that's going to be today's project. Alright, we're just going to start one connection at a time here so that nothing gets mixed up. I might try to... that connection just about had it. I might try to eliminate a lot of these wire nuts that are on this thing because I'm not a fan of wire nuts. I guess they got their place, but in my mind there's a lot better and a lot safer connections. We shall see. We have some multi-wire splice connectors up there I think I'm going to try to use. At least I think we do. They should still be up there. I can't remember what project we even bought them for. But like I say, Granddad, he used to do a lot of work around here. Back before he retired. Well, he retired from that, and then he became a building inspector, and I semi-retired from that, and he just kind of does... I guess he's still kind of a building inspector in a way, but it's more on, like, contract basis, and it's more as a consultant than an actual building inspector, I guess you'd say. But there are a lot of houses around here that he has rebuilt and remodeled over the years. He used to be a dealer for, I can't remember what brand of oil furnace. He used to do a lot of heating and HVAC stuff. A lot of new builds, a lot of remodels. A lot of additions, stuff like that. That's why he has that little Ford backhoe you guys have seen on here several times. That was what that was bought for, was that business. And then, okay, we do not need the ground for this. I wish I still had his work truck. He had a I can't remember what year that was, but it was a first gen Cummins, single cab, 4-wheel drive, long bed, 5-speed manual, red and silver with, I think, like a light gray pinstriping. He bought it as a cab and chassis in Tennessee. I think it was Tennessee. And drove it home and put a box on it. And then it had Redding. They're actually down in Dad's trailer now. Redding bedside toolboxes that like kind of like set on the bedside and sat in the stake pockets. And that was his work truck, service truck, whatever you want to call it. It was still a clean truck when he got rid of it. I actually do not, I couldn't even tell you what happened to it. But it was clean when he got rid of it. I remember riding in that truck when I was a little kid. But he and Dad, well, Dad worked for him before he started into the machine building industry. And basically Dad had just decided that he didn't want to build houses for a living. So basically when Granddad got too old, he just retired from it and became a building inspector. He was also he delivered propane and stuff too for a while as part of that business. There used to be, down there in the woods in front of this field, he had what he called his gas house, where he stored all the gas bottles. I should see if they still have the VHS I remember watching when I was a little kid. There was one time, too, Granddad was involved in moving. I'm trying to remember if it was a one-room schoolhouse or if it was a church. I want to say it was a one-room schoolhouse, but they had it on. Somebody took a video of it back when everybody had the VHS camcorders, and I can't remember if it was a Hugh or a Clark loader they were pulling it with, but Granddad was involved in that too. I'll have to ask him about that. I was actually just thinking about that a couple weeks ago. I don't know what made me think of it, what made me remember it, but I was thinking about that, seeing if that video was still around and seeing where the I'm pretty sure it was a schoolhouse. That's what sticks in my mind, but seeing where it ended up, and I could get the video converted and then go look at it today if it's still around and show you guys. that's why it's like when well, not like when I'm working on this barn right now, and guys get on there and try to tell me how I need to be doing it. It's like, between my dad and my granddad, they have done shit like that most of their adult lives. Well, granddad most of his adult life, dad until his mid-20s, I think, is when he finally got out of it. But they have more experience doing that shit than I'll ever need, so if I ever need help on it, I'm gonna go ask them before I get any advice on YouTube. Not to be a dick about it, it's just, that's just, they've done it, so I'm gonna utilize them. Size. Sorry, this video is going to be kind of, well, this might be the only connection I actually video, and then I'll just hop ahead to when it's done, because, like I say, there's not going to be a whole lot of meat to this other than making wire connections. Alright, just gotta stuff that through there, and I'll wire nut it into where it's currently hooked into. That way I'm just gonna do one wire at a time and connect everything back together before I move on to the next one. That way, since I don't have a wiring schematic, I don't lose the connections. So, but that's basically how this is gonna go. So, like I say, I'll just get this done and skip ahead for you, because this is all it's gonna be. So anyhow, we'll catch you here in a little bit. Okay, a few hours later, we got a finished product. Ran, I don't know why this wire harness coming out of the transformer was split, because it was cloth braid wire here, it was cloth braid wire into the box, and then there was two wire nuts here. So I don't know why it was the same wire, so I don't know why the wires just didn't come all the way through here, unless something had happened at one point and they needed to get spliced. But either way, I got rid of the old cloth wire that went into the box, got rid of the wire nuts that were here, put in heat shrink butt splices, so those are nice and sealed up. I probably, between all the wires coming in, probably took close to 12 inches of extra wire out of this box. Eliminated all the wire nuts, so that's all nice and cleaned up. New cord up to the thermal switches. This cord here is a jumper that hooks in between the two cutouts, so that you can run a you can run this off of a thermostat, which is this guy right here. The faceplate's broke off of it, but it actually still works. You just don't know what heat setting you got. So rewired that plug. This is the original plug. This guy here is the original plug off of the original cord. I took it off because I needed a two-prong plug to go into here, and just put a jumper wire in it. So this is just a jumper to connect, or to complete this circuit. That way I can run it and bypass the thermostat, because down there in that barn, I doubt I'm going to be running it long enough, nor will it have the capacity to heat that thing all the way up to a temperature to have the thermostat shut it off. So I'll just bypass the thermostat so I don't get all the wires hanging. And then if you want to run the thermostat, you just unplug that jumper plug and plug the thermostat back in, and it's good to go. This motor's rewired. The only wires on here that I haven't replaced are obviously the ones that physically go into the transformer, because I don't want to go into there. But they were in good enough, I mean, they're actually in really good shape. They're still pliable, the cloth is still in good shape, so there's no reason to open that up. And these wires here that go into this motor, because that's a sealed motor, I can't get it open, so I can't replace them. But same thing, they are still nice and pliable, and the jacket's not cracking, so there's really no reason to replace those. But everything else is done, so I'll finish buttoning it back up and we'll test fire it, and that'll be it. The other thing I did to it was originally a 2-prong cord, and I converted it to a 3-prong cord, so now it's actually grounded. There was a bolt holding the junction box on where I could hook a ground wire, so now it's a little safer to use if it's ever damp, or just safer to use in general. I'll just run it here for a second so you guys can see it, because you don't really want to be running it in an enclosed space like this for, well, right, basically at all, but there's enough air in here for a second or two. Thing puts out some heat, because you can stand clear back here and still feel it. But they don't make them like that anymore. It's got a squirrel cage fan in there that force feeds air into the burner, and then this is the air fan that pushes air in around the fire pot and blows it out. And then it's got a cast body gear pump that feeds into the injector. I mean, it's built stout, and it's built to be worked on, is the best thing. I mean, it's literally one of them deals. They just don't build them like that anymore. Made in USA. Wish we could still do stuff like that. And let's see a new one you buy at Lowe's or Menards today last 50-something odd years and still run after sitting for 20 years just needing some wiring. But anyway, plus I guess you could technically consider it a family heirloom since Granddad bought it new. But the only other thing I got to do to it yet is I got to get a new tip for the injector, because it's got a, well, first it's kind of choppy, like it's not atomizing perfectly, and it's supposed to have a 60-1 in it, which for those not familiar with an oil furnace or an oil burner, that's 60 degree, that's a 60-degree cone of spray, and the 1 designates 1 gallon per hour. So it's supposed to have a 60-1 in it, and apparently when Granddad was using it last, he didn't have any around, but he had an 80-1, so it's the right flow rate. It's just too wide of a fan, so that's an 80-1 would be an 80-degree fan, 1 gallon per hour. So I'll have to get a new tip for it, which it's just a standard oil furnace tip. They still make those. And other than that, she's ready to rock and roll. So anyhow, I'm sorry this wasn't really anything tractor and or farm related, but a torpedo heater is definitely I mean, there's probably not very many farms that don't have one laying around for just in case situations, so it kind of fits. And it's old, so it fits that way too. So anyhow, I guess that's it for this one, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.